I am here with the one and only Lynette Zang. Lynette, how are you doing today?
I'm very happy to be here, Brett. Thank you so much. And you know, it's so easy to just be me because, frankly, everybody else is taken anyway.
I may steal that at some point in the future. I absolutely love that. That's wonderful, right?
Wait, I actually did not create that saying. It's my daughters gave me a little magnet on there, and it just said, "Be yourself. Everyone is taken. Everyone else is taken." And I'm like, absolutely, that's true for every single person.
Absolutely right. Be a number one you, not a number two somebody else. Duke Ellington. Absolutely right. Yeah. So look, this has been long overdue. We've tried to connect before. Our schedules didn't align, all that kind of stuff. But you're here today. We're so grateful for you taking the time to sit down with us today. I want to discuss the overall movement that we're going through right now into a new financial system with you, the importance of distributed ledger technology, the new technology of digital assets themselves, coupled with the understanding of God's money. That's gold. And gold has been around and gold ain't going nowhere. And I want you to tell me what you see right now currently with the shape of things and where we are.
Well, you know, Brad, I've studied currency life cycles. This is one thing that seems to me like, you know, I absolutely have been put on this planet to do it. But I've been studying currency life cycles since 1987. And you see these repeatable patterns because there's lots of data out there from, oh crap, all sorts of currencies that, you know, don't exist anymore. And when you look at their life cycle, it makes a whole lot of sense. And I can tell you, at 69 years old, I have an 8-year-old granddaughter. Nobody's thinking she's about to be 70, and nobody's thinking I'm about to be 9. And so, like everything, there is a life cycle. We are at the very end of this life cycle. And the signal actually came through back in October. I think it was October 9th. You can't hold me to that specific date, but I'm pretty sure it was October 9th of 2002, which is when I came to ITM trading, because the formulas were telling me that we were at the end of this grand fiat government-based monetary system. But, you know, everybody wants instant pudding and thinks that things should happen like this. No, no, no. It has to happen slowly enough so that the public does not realize what's happening, do not make changes in how they live their life or how they value the currencies or how they stay in those fiat money products. So, but you know, frankly, the writing is on the wall, and all of the typical chaos that surrounds a currency life cycle, like wars, like issues around, you know, women's lib. You know, I'm going back to the 70s with women's lib, but there's the Me Too movement. There was a suffragette movement back in the early 1900s, with wars erupting everywhere, with civil rights, with oil and energy issues. When you go back and you look at the 1970s with inflation, when you go back and you look at the 1970s, or you go back and you look at the early 1900s, which is when this grand experiment began, you see these same kind of patterns. But frankly, there's 4,800 currencies, more than that do not exist. These are government-backed currencies. There's only one money that has withstood the test of time. And so when I sit here and tell you, aside from all those typical patternings, the other reason why we have to shift into reset, and the system died in 2008. So I've actually been talking about the reset since 2009. But the reason why we're done is because the central bankers are out of tools. And the two key tools that they had are inflation, because people don't understand it. It creates nominal confusion. And if you look officially, there's 3 cents left officially out of the original purchasing power of the dollar, what the dollar could buy. So basically, now they have to attack principal. And the tool, the key tool that they have to regulate the rate and speed of inflation are interest rates. And we were anchored at 15 years at zero interest rates. And now, because of all of the money printing, that they've done and the inflation that they've created, because that's really the only tool they have is degrade the value of this crap, right? We're at the very end because look at what's happening as they've raised on a global basis. This is a global issue as they've raised interest rates. That ginormous debt bubble, because that's what the system is based on, is imploding. And when you have the key debt, the 10-year treasury, which we've been trained to think is the most liquid and largest pool out there, but they have been having liquidity issues, and liquidity is the ease to buy and sell a product, whatever it happens to be, within a narrow price range. So that price doesn't move very much. But what are we seeing in the treasury market? It's like on this huge swing because frankly, and you can see this too in a chart that doesn't exist anymore, but did up until 2016. In 2013, they handed over control of the treasury market to Wall Street traders who don't really give a crap about stability. They only care about picking up a little bit of income. So, where are we in this trend cycle? We are at the end. And the only thing that's holding it together is public confidence and this rapid inflation that everybody's experiencing. They feel it and they see it and they experience it more at the lower end where most of the masses are. The 1%ers, it's a gnat, right? Because they've already built their positions in gold and hard assets and things like that, right?
Well, so, I think you make a great point, Lynette. I mean, and a lot of them inside of that comment. The US dollar as the global reserve currency is nearing its end, and the 5 major currencies that were the world reserve currency before the US dollar had about an average of 100 years or so in their life cycle. We're well past 70 years at this point. We are, as you say, at the end of this cycle. And I mentioned this right before we went live today, and we spent so much time prepping. If people knew, I tell you got to be on your A game because this is how busy Lynette is. When you get a chance to sit down with her, you're going. That's what's happening, right? So be ready, right? It's not. Look, people. What do they say about luck? It's a place where opportunity and preparation meet, right? You got to be prepared when the opportunity comes. That's the only way you get lucky, right? So we're lucky today to have you. But the life cycle is running out for the dollar. And I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things that I see taking place that from an overview begin to look a little bit like these preparatory moves to deal with the end of that cycle. Absolutely. One is the introduction of Bitcoin, which I believe is the shiny distraction to not go get gold because the banks are hoarding it at an alarming rate because they know what's coming. They listen to Lynette. Right. So then you take a situation with the ETFs, and what I see there is really working towards digitizing and tokenizing everything. And this is the way to begin the traditional markets and move them into tokenization because the world's going to that way. Bitcoin becomes almost like a beta test of that whole thing unfolding.
100% right.
Yeah. And then if you look at the stable coins, and now they're talking about the possibility of stablecoin legislation being done possibly in Q1 of this year by April, that would be remarkable. But if we see a stipulation inside that legislation that allows financial institutions to issue their own stablecoins, that would create a new use case for these soon to be hyperinflated dollars, and that stablecoin could serve as a sponge to soak up that hyperinflated liquidity and the bonds to go with it. Your thoughts on that, Lynette?
Well, first of all, can you please, for for everybody's edification, explain what creates a stable coin, because isn't that dollars?
It is. That's a wonderful point. Wonderful point. We want to keep everybody with us, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so truly, how stable is the dollar at officially 3% purchasing power? It's just that people don't look at that. So yes, I think between the substitution fund that was created at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which in my opinion is most likely to become the next world reserve currency, because it's a basket of it can be every currency on the planet. So, and it's been out there since 1969. But yes, they have to absorb the dollars. So to put the legislation through and allow the banks to create it, because the banks create the debt money, don't they? They just load that into existence, would make a lot of sense, but it's not really stable, is it?
No.
Because based upon the confidence of the public. But like the substitution fund on a global basis, where any corporation or any government can make a deposit of any of their dollar-denominated assets or instruments, so bonds, cash, swaps, any of that stuff, and then the IMF can convert those into SDR denominated assets. Part of the SDR is certainly the dollar.
Yes.
So the thought process was that they could regulate the rate and speed of the dollars coming back, and therefore control potentially, and it's just a theory, control the rate and speed of inflation. The stable coins being issued by the banks and therefore also absorbing the dollars. So now you've got a global attack on that, and you could have a local attack on that. It makes all the sense in the world, but the public don't believe it. We've seen stable coins explode, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes. You know, how stable? You know, you always have to wonder when they name anything. I don't care whether it's a stable coin or it's a mutual fund or it's an ETF, whatever that name is, it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
That's what history tells us every time. However, if you have a true stable coin backed by real money, gold, and it only works if it is convertible into that gold, now you have a real stable coin. And what backs that asset is its global functionality, because it is used in every single aspect of the global economy. That's why it's been money for thousands and thousands of years.
Right.
Doesn't need a government to say, this is money.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a Zimbabwe, let's see, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, $10 trillion note. Do you know what you can buy with this Zimbabwe dollar? Nothing. Nothing. And what did they do? They brought out about a year-ish ago or so, they brought out a 1 ounce gold coin. Who do you think can afford that? Oh, let's say the top 10% of the people in that country, not the masses. So now presumably they have a gold-backed CBDC, central bank digital currency. It's getting some level of adoption, but you can't convert it. So until you can convert it, you can't believe it.
Oh, there's so many good points in here. One is that I want to take out of here and extract is everyone thinks this is going to happen somewhere else. It won't happen here, right? Everybody, no, listen, Lynette, that was Zimbabwe. And of course, Zimbabwe, right? And, Venezuela. Well, I mean, that's Venezuela. You know, let me show you what that is. So far away from my house on a map. they really think that moment won't happen here. But the truth is, to go back to the first part of our conversation, there really is life cycles to fiat, and there are certainly life cycles to global reserve currency that is also fiat. And, we got to be prepared here, right? We have to be prepared. And, there was another point you made there about the gold itself. And I think that's an interesting point, because now you have a system there that's not quite in place where everyone can use it. Tokenization can help bring that to the world, not just Zimbabwe, right?
Right.
But there is a project called Project Sandman. I don't know if you've heard of this project, but this is a project of more than 100 nations that have a plan in this Project Sandman to simultaneously de-dollarize from the US dollar and dump the US dollar in its daily trade use.
Mhm.
I have said many times, we are already witnessing this happen. We are watching the petrodollar agreement be unwound before our eyes.
Yes.
And right, that's huge. We'll go to that next. But this Project Sandman, if they were to execute this in fashion, in a simultaneous fashion, this could create that death by 1,000 cuts, but on the same day, Lynette.
Oh, well, 100%. And like you said, we've been watching the de-dollarization because we in the US have been so flippin' heavy-handed. And really, I think the death knell and what created a lot more urgency for Project Sandman was what the world saw us do with Russia and the sanctions and kicking them out of the SWIFT, the global financial system. But that was moving in that direction even before that.
Right.
Those that would have maybe said, oh, but we're allies. Oh, but that's there and not here. All of a sudden they went, well, what if we do disagree with what they want? Look at the power that they wield. And so we've been watching alternative systems grow up now for a while, because honestly, the system died in 2008.
Yes.
Right? It did.
Yes.
Period. I mean, I was getting ready to retire then. I was in a 2-bedroom condo that I could just turn the key and off I go. And I never in a million years thought that I would have seen the death of our current system in my lifetime. But I witnessed it. So, boy, did I do an about face and got rid of that little 2-bedroom condo and bought a property actually in dead central Phoenix and became a farmer, which was not something I ever thought of doing, but I know what happens to people, and you don't have to look very far. It's food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. These are the things that we need to sustain a standard of living. And I started working on that when I saw the system die in 2008. I was doing the gold and silver before that, no problem. And I knew that we were in that trajectory because of the formulas were telling me, and they're way smarter than I am. But it's being prepared to be as self-sufficient and independent as you possibly can be. And so you need to have these things that are outside of the system, because like we saw in March of 2020, boy, how did that impact the individuals that were not prepared?
Changed my whole life. I had to reinvent my whole life, Lynette.
And there are a lot of people that are saying that. Thank God you had the ability to do so. Most people are not. Frankly, I was watching it come across the globe. So I immediately set up a home studio, which is where I am now. I film it at the ITM studio on Wednesdays, but I do all my work on Tuesdays here. And, and I'm walking around my gardens because I had plenty of food to eat. So it didn't matter to me if I couldn't get an avocado at the grocery store. That was no big deal. And I'm thinking, oh, look at how smart I am. And I was able to help people with toilet paper and food and all of that stuff. But what I didn't see that made me go, oh, crap, there's the hole. was that there were riots that were happening at the Capitol, which were not far from my house.
That's right.
Riots that were happening at Fashion Square in Scottsdale, which are near my children's homes. And I went, oh crap, because that night I slept in my bed with a gun, which is not the way I want to live my life, right?
Exactly.
So I went, I need a safe place where we can all go. And so it took a while, but I found a bug out location, and I'm up there building a community to support 40 right now.
That's wonderful. To your point about all of this, it's not as simple. We have seen, as we discussed, we lightly touched on, there's been 5 other, fiat currencies that were serving as a reserve currency before the US dollar, right? And the interesting thing about it this time is that I think again, just kind of going up a little higher with the points we're talking about today, we're moving from a debt-based system to an asset-backed system this time. This is not as simple as just simply choosing another fiat currency to use. This isn't, oh, well, should we stop using the dollar and start using the yuan, right? Should we stop using this and go back to the pound, right? That's not the moment we're in. The moment we are in is about a full transition, because look, backing stable coins means there's got to be something behind it, right? If you're going to have tokenized gold, gold better be behind it, not paper gold, real gold, right? An asset-backed system. So looking at something like XRP even, you can have lots of things from the commodities and gold, silver, diamonds, you name it, platinum, copper. You could have all of that tokenized on the ledger and representing as reserves if you wanted to inform value of that asset in the future, if you wanted to do that, because the XRP ledger also works as a decentralized exchange. But all of this doesn't work unless we're tokenized, we're digitized, we're in the new system. How do we get into this new system, Lynette, and not give up our identity, not give up our freedom, our privacy, and our rights? I want to hear you on this.
Right. Well, you're talking about the tokenization, and you are accurate. I mean, the blockchain technology that can create that string of ownership that's really what the power is behind all of this. But I'm going to say, you gotta have the ability to convert, because really, first of all, it's interesting in all of my readings, because I'm saying, okay, so how are they going to justify the creation of these CBDCs or all of this? And they are not talking about creating it from assets that currently exist. They're talking about the creation of these digital CBDCs, either continuing to be based on debt, which means they have to take down this whole big debt mountain and pay it off so we can start at zero and grow that debt again. Or they're talking about creating it from purchases. So I decide I want to go out and buy a boat, and all of a sudden there's all this new money in the system to buy that boat. My big concern, and I do agree a lot with you on the tokenization. I like that if there are real assets behind it that can be converted.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that conversion is really, really the key.
Yes.
What I see us going into for most people is really a control mechanism, because everything that you're doing, they can track your income, they can track your outlays, they can determine what you can buy, how much of it you can buy, if you can buy it at all. If they don't like your politics or you say something that they don't like, they can cut you off from it. So would I be in favor of a true, a true asset-backed token? 100%. But am I convinced that that's the direction that the governments and the central bankers and the 1%ers are going? No, I'm not. We are going back to feudal times.
Yeah.
where you just have a handful of people that own everything and the rest of the population that rents.
Oh, God. I mean, this is so spot on. Serfdom, feudalism.
Absolutely.
The idea of moving back to this concept is absolutely, I think it's so spot on. It's exactly what's happening through this move. And we have to be careful here that we don't lose our rights in this world because that's all they're trying to do here through tokenization is just strip it all away. So you have nothing.
Exactly. And one of the things that has been discussed in a lot of the papers that I have read is by holding your equity on your flipping phone, right? Because if they go in and they try to take it from you, you're going to notice it. But if you spend your equity in your home or in any of the assets that you hold, if it's all tokenized and you are inspired because, short-termism, oh, that was 15 seconds ago. That's old news, right? Want that blouse. I want that boat. I got money right here. You're spending your equity, then who can you complain to? Exactly. It's like when they allowed Amazon to come in and not charge taxes and not have to make a profit. What happened to the mom and pops?
Yeah.
It's the backbone of the economy, right?
Absolutely.
The mom and pops, because the mom and pops have to make a profit to stay in business and they have to charge taxes.
Yep.
After enough destruction there was done, then they came in and said, okay, Amazon, you got to start charging taxes. And oh, by the way, since those mom and pops are now forced to work for Amazon, right? I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Wall Street, and they have turned every single asset into a Wall Street product so that the traders are making the money. Yeah. Even down to water. We cannot live without water, but those with deep pockets get the water first.
Yeah.
The public gets, I'm seeing what's happening, and I'm telling you, that mantra of mine developed because I saw what was coming and I knew you can't live without food. You can't live without water. Those are two things you cannot live without. And look around the globe, what's happening.
Oh, yeah. It is really disturbing. And to the point of, control, I deal with censorship on social media all the time. I cover certain areas. I walk out too far. The artificial intelligence, it combs through all your material, ends up hitting you with some kind of strike. They demonetize you. This stuff goes on. I actually had to create a private group because of that issue, so we could actually have the deeper, real conversations without the fear of that censorship taking place. Another point I'm hearing you talk about in here is the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here, right? There's only, and I say it for my channel all the time that way. I say there's really only two kinds of people in the world. It's the haves and the have-nots, right? And that's where this feudalism and serfdom come in, where you may work the land, but it won't be your land, right? It'll be their land you're working, right? And they'll pay you to work it, and you'll be lucky to have it. I mean, that is a crappy goal.
Food, right? Yeah. About it, then maybe they'll let you keep some of the food. Maybe.
Yeah. And tax you for the food that you grew, intended, and harvested, and then tax you too.
And hey, if we're in CBDCs, you think you have any control at all?
Yeah, no, see, that's the problem. And, it's interesting. That's what, yeah, exactly. Physical gold in your hands. You know that you're empowering yourself, your life, gold and silver. There's no question about it.
No counterparty risk.
That's right. No counterparty risk. That's exactly right. It is yours. It's in your hand. No question about it. So, Lynette, as we move through these very fast, sweeping, changing times, and these things are moving so fast now, yep. What does this look like to you 3 years out, 5 years out? What do you see in front of us right now?
Well, really, I don't really want to say what I see, but I'll say what I see. I believe that the hyperinflation has already begun. And if you look at the, my work, so one of the that I'm always on is the Federal Reserve Education Department. Not because I think it's so honest, but I think it's more honest and fewer people go there. So the monetary velocity, which is the speed at which money changes hands and indicates the vibrancy, the real vibrancy of an economy and the sharing of that economy, has been declining substantially since 1997, which means that was the peak of which, when taking on new debt, was actually stimulating the broad economy. Well, what I've been saying for a long time is you have to pay attention to that move, the shift in the velocity of money, because when it starts to go up in a pervasive way, to me, and I could be wrong, I don't think I am, but I could be wrong, but to me, that would indicate the start of the hyperinflation. And it has moved up now in a very pervasive way. So I think what we're coming into, there will be a major crisis. And my God, I say this and then I have to go a little tongue in cheek, but there are so many black swans that are flying around. Which one is going to get into the propeller of this airplane and crash everything? I don't know. Take your pick. It could be private equity. It could be it is going to be the treasury market. All the derivatives, all of the bets, all of the leverage that is in this system. So now it is also an election year.
Yes, it is.
So they could be doing their best to kind of keep a lot of things hidden, which, I mean, the banking system started breaking down last March.
Yeah.
Does anybody that's listening or watching this actually think that issue has been solved? Because we know what happens. Banks are sitting on a tremendous amount of debt. And when interest rates go up, the market value of those bonds go down. Well, okay, so the bank says, well, I'm not going to sell them. I'm going to hold them to maturity so I don't have to count these losses. But when there is a run on the bank and you are forced to sell into the market, yeah, got a big problem. Because the foundation of the banking system is, I can't even say it's eroded. It has frickin' evaporated.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, this is such a great point. You know, the velocity of money that you're talking about here being a very real issue, which, you know, again, speaks to where we're moving to this tokenization, instant settlement, moving money, getting these dollars moving again, right? And moving to asset backed to give them credibility too, right? Bringing gold into the system for credibility as well. I just, there's so many fantastic points that you're making inside of this. The velocity of money is a big issue.
Oh, it's a huge issue.
Huge.
That indicates is that people are spending whatever of this stuff they get in their hands as quickly as they can, which is what happens in hyperinflation.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point something out in the repo market, which is on treasuries, right? And at the rate that the repo market is declining, by this spring, the Fed may have to pivot. So even though they're saying higher for longer because they're between a rock and a hard place, inflation is proving stickier
than originally thought.
Oh, shocker. I mean, if they can keep it at 2%, which is what the ability to shift those interest rates are about, then they're getting what they want. They're robbing you, but you don't complain and you don't change what you do, right? That's what they refer to as financial stability, not prices staying the same, your behavior staying the same, right? But so they're keeping it up there to try and quelch demand, which is certainly happening right now. But then, like we saw in 2019, the money market system, because that's what funds that and the treasuries, et cetera, that system broke down completely. It froze. So that's when that about face pivot from the last time they tried to raise rates happened. And we could be facing that in the spring. So what happens if that happens? That means that visibly inflation rears its ugly head again, obviously. And those at the lower end, it never went away from them. They can't believe that everything is hunky-dory because for them it's not.
You know, if this continues to go at the pace that we're watching things happen, and with all the black swans flying around, as you said, you know, if we were to see, you know, and obviously this could be a nightmare scenario of a couple, it actually would only take one catalyst to really kick this thing in motion. But if we were to see that hyperinflation really kick off, I would not rule out the US doing a retail digital dollar stable coin, which we have now, USDC and that, and dealing with that, soaking these things up, issuance of banks and these to try to soak up those hyperinflated dollars. But we know that there's this huge US dollar market known as the euro dollar market. And there's trillions of dollars worth of bonds that are going to have to be bought back. If that hyperinflation goes and they dump those, the Fed will be forced to buy those back. That we might see a wholesale CBDC as a US Treasury note be introduced, and then buy back the hyperinflated bonds out of the euro dollar market, and then reissue a new bond that's tokenized on the ledger of a US Treasury note in order to deal with the bloat. If it goes that hard, I don't think they know how hard it's going to go.
Oh, I know. It's a big experiment. Nobody knows how hard it's going to go. But I think that that's what the substitution fund would be about.
Okay.
Talking about a global institution of the world reserve currency.
Yes.
What that would do by all of those entities depositing that into the substitution fund at the IMF, and then the IMF converting all of those instruments into SDR instruments, it now creates a massive amount of SDR, the largest in history, right, and it's so easy for these non-elected officials at the International Monetary Fund, which are global central bankers and global treasury heads, no elected officials in there. They are a state unto themselves. And that transfers all that power into their hands. And frankly, when you look at any country that has been forced to go under the thumb of the IMF, it's austerity, yeah, austerity, 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 austerity. So to me, that is a much more likely scenario, one that they have been working on since 1969, right? And it was, and what made me really look at the SDR, because I knew about it, I've been in these markets on some level since 1964, was China going, oh, what about the SDR? And I went, crap, yep, that makes all the sense in the world, because everybody's had some since 1969. And then they came out, they issued a whole bunch more, they distributed it, and then they came out during this most current crisis that I hesitate to name, because yes, I too have noticed censorship and all of that. And they've now given out so much of it, and they're putting all of these countries right here
under the thumb.
So I frankly think that that's a much greater potential than the U.S. I think they'll do that too, but I think most of the power is now really transferring to the IMF.
And going in that regard. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting phase to watch. I mean, you know, how this actually plays out, and bringing that many dollars into the basket would offset the weighted averages of those dollars. So it's a whole, you know, there's a whole unknown there that is just like, my God, I don't know what will take place. But and as you said, the IMF scares the hell out of me. Last thing I want to do is be beholden to the IMF. My goodness.
And throw the bricks in there too.
Oh boy.
Far more attuned to gold. Yep. I knew they couldn't do a gold-backed currency because they have the same debt issues that the rest of the world has. But you throw that in and the de-dollarization, and to your point, Saudi Arabia, I mean, energy is a big, huge issue. It hasn't gone away because we want to go to renewable sources, right? Yeah.
It's interesting what you say, because, now with the recent joining of Iran and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia to BRICS coalition, 80+% of the world's oil production is now inside the BRICS coalition. And obviously all of this is, a lot of your fossil fuel producers and things of that nature, natural resources, they're doing that because they don't want to go green. They're like, this green agenda, oh, no. That puts us out of business. So you guys go do that. We've got BRICS, and we're going to back our stuff by gold, which is going to put you in a very bad spot not too long from now when the dollar is facing another currency that is backed by gold itself. There is a moment coming here, Lynette, that could be quite horrifying.
That is the point of being prepared.
Yeah.
Because it is horrifying. And I got to tell you, Brad, I'm going to be when that last shoe drops, that explodes the entire system, I'm going to be as surprised as everybody else. Probably not as shocked, but as surprised at that moment, which I cannot even begin to tell you how grateful I am that I started on this journey after 2008, because I knew the system died then. So I had enough time to build that infrastructure and even the infrastructure at the bug out. But this is really, do you know why I'm here today? Because of community.
That's right.
Because one person cannot do it all themselves, especially where we are in this trend cycle. You say, where are we going to be in 3 to 5 years? Well, some people are going to be in massive deep doo-doo, because there will be this ginormous crisis that implodes the entire system, and it's going to threaten your security on every single level. Food, water, energy, security, barterability. That's mostly barterability for me. Wealth preservation, community, and shelter. So I think it is critically important that you and I have these discussions, but that people, wherever they are, they need to start thinking about creating 2 big communities. One local, get out there, go to the farmers markets, and then meet the farmers where they are, where they're growing the cows and they're growing the wheat and they're growing stuff. Create that relationship, because when push comes to shove, if they know you and they don't know this person, guess who's getting it? Go there, say, hey, can I work a day on your farm? Create that relationship, because quite honestly, you don't have the luxury of time anymore. So if you need to learn some new skills, now is the perfect time to do it. And the community on a global basis, because even though we can see these CBDCs and we can see all of this coming, is it inevitable? Look at how some countries put out the CBDCs and the population just did not accept it. Then governments do desperate things. They got a lot more forceful and hard-handed at it. If everything you have is in the system, including an EMP that takes out the electricity and your ability to transact, you got to go real global. But there are so many more of us than there are of them. Having a true asset-backed currency levels the playing field if it's really democratized. And I think that this is what I'm fighting for. Honestly, this is what I'm fighting for, because there are more of us than there are of them, and we can come together. And when it's just more central bank garbage that they want to shove down our throats, we can say no if we are independent.
Oh, it's such a fantastic point, Lynette.
I mean, this is, I went to Australia in August, and I did 3 events there, and it was wonderful. I have to tell you, Brad, it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am. Because most of the time, this was a mining event, but most of the time, they either want me to talk about what you and I are talking about today, or they want me to talk about the bug out and all the other things that I do when I do these events. But what I realized was that what I really needed to talk about more than anything is community. Mm-hmm. I can give you all the background and the details, but if you're alone and this crap hits the fan and you don't have all of those things to have a stable standard of living, what are you going to do?
Oh, it's such a fantastic point. That sense of community, to know that that network is in place. And, it's important for us to understand too, that our contribution to ourselves, our family, and outside of that, extended family, friends, network, sense of community, is to never stop growing, to never stop learning, to never stop sharing the information, because it's the only way to really get that network and that information out so people have an opportunity to be prepared. If you don't know something is a possibility, you're never even going to consider to prepare for it.
Exactly. I did recently is it up now, Luke? The 5-minute video? Okay, because so many people, inflation creates nominal confusion, and we've been living in this system since the day we were born. And so I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners know that when they're trying to talk to the family and their friends and people that they care about this, people go, la, 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 you're crazy. I don't want to hear it. Dollar's been around since the day I was born. So we created a 5-minute video, 5 minutes. You can probably get somebody to sit down, not to scare the crap out of people, because then they just go, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. But just to open their minds a teeny bit on things that they personally have experienced with in terms of purchasing power and where we are at the end. And hopefully, what I've discovered in my lifetime is when I look at something just a teeny weeny bit differently, it is amazing what you see. So that 5-minute video that is shareable, designed to be shared, designed to go to people that don't want to hear what's going on. I'd encourage everybody to go. I think, is it on the homepage, or where is it placed? It would be on the front facing of the ITM website.
Okay.
YouTube front facing of the ITM YouTube, and you can find it Lynette Zang or ITM Trading.
Yep.
And share that link.
Yes.
Let's build this community, because look at what's happening with the rise of the unions. Does that not that gives me so much hope, because what we're seeing is people coming together and making change and going, no, we are not going to accept this income and wealth inequality. They don't realize that even the gains that they're getting are not keeping pace with inflation. But the point, and what gives me hope, and even in the younger generations as well, is people coming together and working as a unified front to get what at least they deem to be more fair, to make a difference, to say no.
Oh, I love it. Lynette Zang, everybody. Lynette Zang, ITM Trading. We'll put some links underneath the video that you discussed, and we'll get those from you guys, and we'll put that under the video for everybody to get a hold of you. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, Lynette. This has been long overdue, and such a big fan of your insights and stuff, and the chance to have a conversation with you is just wonderful. Thank you so much.
This has been fabulous. This has been fabulous. Luke, don't click out real fast. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Don't go anywhere.